Hey guys, we're down here at Kelly's Kawasaki. We're going to service my GSXR and my Harley Davidson today. All right guys, we're going to start the back of the machine. We're going to work our way around, going over what we need to service for get your bike ready for spring, all right? First thing I'm going to check is my tire pressure. Like I said earlier, I run about 32 pounds of air in my tire. I ride kind of aggressively, so when this tire gets good and hot, it's going to run about 34 to 36 pounds of pressure. I like to run a little lower tire pressure than some guys because it gives me a wider contact patch on the center of the tire. Makes the tire last a little longer. I think the manufacturer suggested tire pressure is about 42 pounds. So you want to look at your riding style and your particular manufacturer and brand of tire that you're riding, and see what you're supposed to run in your machine. But 32 pounds works for me. Checking your chain, you're going to want to check and see, pull your chain, get it nice and snug, and then you're going to want to see if you can pull that chain back from the sprocket. If you can't pull it back from the sprocket, it should be in pretty good shape. Now this shows that I'm in pretty good shape, but I know that I got a couple tight spots in my chain. When I rotate the tire and I check my chain tension, it comes up differently depending on where the tires are located. So that tells me I either got a tight spot or a stretch spot in my chain, or I've got some uneven wear on a set of sprockets here. So I'm going to put new chain sprockets on my machine this year. But for most guys, if you can check that and you don't have play back there at the sprocket, you're probably good to go. A little extra slack in your chain you can take out with your chain adjuster. Something else you want to check back here, you want to look at your brake pads. Motorcycle brake pads run a little thinner than a car brake pad, so just because they look a little thin doesn't mean that they're bad. What you want to do is go to your manual and look at the service limit on the brake pad according to your manual, and you can either mic or use a good set of digital calipers and see what kind of thickness you got on your brake pad. I usually get, to be honest, I get about 8 or 9 years out of a set of rear brake pads, and I get about 1 or 2 years out of a set of front brake pads. This, I think, actually is the original set of brake pads on my 11-year-old machine, and they're still in pretty good shape. I don't use the back brake a whole lot. Going forward here, you're going to check your cable tension on your clutch cable. You want just a little bit of slack there. If that clutch engages that cable, as soon as you grab the lever, there's a chance that you're causing your clutch to slip. So you want to make sure that you have just a little bit of play in the clutch cable. Not a whole lot, because you want to be able to disengage that clutch, so you don't want too much slack in it. But you want just enough that you're not putting tension on the pressure plate, causing the clutch to slip. Moving down here, we're going to look at our fork seals, we're going to look at our fork tubes, make sure that we don't have any gouges in it, that we're not seeing any residue around your fork tubes. A lot of guys, they'll replace that fork oil every year like religion. I do mine every couple years, 3 years. I'll put new fluid in mine. I actually replaced the lower legs on mine. I went through the titanium nitrate coating on the set, and so when I put new fork tubes on it, I put in fresh oil then, so I know that my fork oil is good. You're going to check your front brake pads, just like on the rear brake pads. They're going to look a little thinner than a car will, and I just put brake pads on mine last year. I only rode about 2,500 miles on my sport bike last year, so I know they're still in good shape. I'm going to still go ahead and take a look at them, make sure that they're wearing evenly. If you get uneven wear in your brake pads, you want to check and make sure you don't have air in one of those pistons, because that means that piston's not putting the pressure on that the other pistons are. So you definitely want to check and make sure that you're getting even wear on your brake pads. Front tire pressure, I run 30 to 32 pounds of pressure in my front. It's kind of like the rear. I ride aggressively. This tire gets hot, it's going to bump up to about 34 pounds of pressure when the tire's good and hot. So you want to look at your manufacturer, suggested tire pressure, and also the manufacturer of the tire, and see what they suggest for that tire. And just because that tire says 42 pounds on it on the sidewall, that's not necessarily, that's the max tire pressure. That's not necessarily optimum running pressure. So you want to research your manual on your machine and see what the manufacturer recommends that for your Kawasaki, Yamaha, Suzuki, Honda, Ducati, whatever you may have. We're going to go to the other side of the machine here and kind of roll through that. Something that we missed on the other side there is your coolant reservoir. You want to look at that and make sure that it's at the proper level, and you want to check to make sure that it's you actually wanted to check that last fall before you store it. Make sure that that coolant will handle below freezing temperatures. But you definitely want to check your coolant level this spring, setting over the winter, and make sure that it didn't leak out and evaporate on you and not realize that you had a leak. Going back to the back of the machine, we already covered the brake pads, we covered the tire pressure. You want to look at your exhaust, make sure like this particular exhaust uses springs to hold it on. So you want to make sure that you still have all those springs. You want to check for leaks, make sure you don't have any leaks. These slip together exhaust systems, you're going to get a little bit of black residue around that intersection or that joint on the pipe, and that's normal. You know, if it was excessive, then I'd see what you could do about putting a clamp on there. They make a couple stainless steel band clamps that'll close that down a little bit for you. Okay, you're going to check your oil level. Actually, what we're going to do is change my oil and change my filter. Again, you're going to want to check all the head bolts on your exhaust system, make sure that they're all still there. Coming here to your brakes. On the front, you're going to want to check your fluid. The same way with your rear, you're going to want to check your fluid there. If it starts looking real dark, you're going to want to replace that. That stuff starts turning on you. It starts getting dark. It starts getting hard on rubber parts inside. Those O-rings and the pistons on the brake calipers. It starts eating those. They start sticking. Your master cylinder, those O-rings start letting a little fluid by. So you want to keep good, fresh fluid in those master cylinders and your reservoirs. You know, this fluid I can see is still a nice clear or a little bit yellow. You know, if that stuff starts turning dark, you're going to want to replace that. Also, if you start feeling the lever starts getting real spongy, could be some air in your line, so that's always a good time to freshen up your brake fluid also. So make sure you don't have any excessive play in there. And I see this on a lot of machines too, guys. They'll have a lot of play in their brake levers. You know, if your levers get to where they're like that, they start feeling gritty. You know, I hate to feel sloppy controls on my machine. So what I actually did was put a set of CRGs on my machine to have a bearing inside so that they feel real good and crisp all the time. It's just a better feeling lever. And then we're back up to the front here with the fork tubes and brake calipers on this side. We're going to do the same thing we do on the other side, check for leaks, make sure our pads are good, make sure that they're wearing even. Going back to under the tank, you're going to pull your air filter, check your air filter. You definitely want to do that before you ride in the spring. You want to take a look inside your air box because those critters like to build a nest in there through the winter. I can't tell how many mouse nests I found in air boxes. We actually had a couple come in that where they've been packed full of dog food, where they got where a mouse has stored its winter food in the air box on the machine. You know, the guy came in, said it was running funny, popped the air box apart, and it was completely full of dog food. So you want to look in your air box before you take off in the spring. Make sure that your filter's clean. You know, I run a K&N air filter, so I'll pull that filter, clean it, reinstall it, and be ready to go for the summer. And that's what we go over, looking for your machine to be ready for summer.